Hello everyone and welcome, I'm Beastly Eel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about this series, Wonder Man. Spoilers ahead, there are going to be many spoilers because the entire series is out, and I wanted to kind of go over everything and my thoughts on the future based on this series. So, it starts off with Simon Williams, who is an actor, who has a part on American Horror Stories. There's a part where he gets killed by, I'm assuming, one of the characters in the show. However, he becomes too engulfed in the past and present of the character to the point where he got so engulfed in the character that he was making too many decisions about the character that was irritating all of the staff there, that eventually he was let go and removed from the set. He goes home early, finds out that his live-in girlfriend is moving out. She was trying to leave before he got home. However, that did not work out. She left him. He didn't want to go stay in the house, so he went and go watch a classic movie where we see none other than Trevor, the old Mandarin from both Iron Man 3 and from Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. So we hear Trevor on the phone talking about an audition he has that's going to be this incredible thing. Simon hears this. Well, first tells him to shush because he thought he was going to be talking during the movie. Trevor made it very clear that he is not planning on speaking during the movie. The movie goes on. They have a little bit of conversation. They leave, and Simon begins to ask him about the audition that he has. And Trevor's like, well, it's a big movie called The Wonder Man, specifically directed by Von Kovac. And, he's an Oscar-winning director and everything else. And Simon then begins to go to his agency, I should say. Basically, why didn't you tell me about this? And she's like, there's no chance. She goes, and then she's basically telling him that you couldn't even lay in blood, Simon. How can we trust you to do this? And she basically says to him that he's a pain, and that's the reason why he's not keeping his gigs, because although he's talented, he's ruining it by overthinking everything. So she leaves. He sneaks into her computer to see where the auditions are. He then figures it out, weasels his way in by calling up, pretending to be somebody else, trying to get Simon Williams in. He gets in. He gets to the place. He has to sign what's called the doorman clause, or waiver, which is apparently proving that you are admitting that you do not have superpowers, which, he signs without a problem. He then goes to the audition, waiting. Trevor kills the audition, it sounds like. He comes out, sees Simon freaking out. He goes to talk to him and basically states, you need to stop overthinking. You need to really, hammer yourself down and just go in there, let out all the air out of you, and then go on instinct. Trevor takes Simon's notes away, and so Simon has to do the audition without his notes. He does exactly what Trevor tells him to do. He takes in a deep breath, lets it out until there's nothing left out of him, and then he just goes on instinct and does an audition. He leaves the audition. The episode's kind of done and over with. No, they have a drink together. We then find out that Trevor is working with Damage Control to watch Simon Williams because he's considered to be a dangerous threat. During the first episode, this was all the first episode, by the way, we see a little bit of his eyes turning red, but nothing else. In episode 2, episode 2, right? Yeah, episode 2 is where we find out how Trevor gets involved with Damage Control. He comes back after the Shang-Chi movie, whenever that takes place. He goes back to Hollywood, gets tackled by FBI, gets brought in by Damage Control, and is offered a choice between either going back to prison or trying to work with them to take down Simon Williams. However, he agrees to it without hearing all of the terms and conditions, mostly because he just does not want to go to prison, and decides to go against him, basically telling them that he's going to have to infiltrate an audition, try to get things going, and get things moving in a good way. During this time, or at some point, I forget if it was episode 1 or 2, it doesn't matter at this point, Simon gets a little worked up and causes damage to his home, causing this massive eruption of energy. We kind of see the pulse of energy, but we don't see the damage that it causes. We see kind of the wall crack behind him a little bit, but we don't actually see the full extent of the damage. But anyway, he then so Simon gets a phone call from his agent, basically saying that he has to do oh my gosh, it's where you record an audition, and I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So basically he texts Trevor, who is talking with Damage Control, about helping him out with it. And this is a funny exchange with Damage Control basically telling Trevor what to do, and Trevor's like, I got this, I've played the role of Trevor for a long time. So this whole episode is them trying to find a place to actually do the audition. They try it at a place where you do the audition, in the sense of like where you film it. Didn't go well there. They then try to do it at Trevor's house. It doesn't work there. They then try to do it at Trevor's friend's house, which is the guy who Trevor does not like, but he taken over Trevor's position in a show. I forget what it's called, but it was a doctor show where this guy had taken over for him, and he was not happy about it. But because Simon wanted it, he was doing this. It did not work out well there. They leave there to then go to Simon's house, where they do the audition piece, film it, send it off, and Trevor sees the damage on the wall, which is a big, huge crack in the wall that kind of spreads out. Trevor then explains that to Damage Control, that Simon is a threat, mostly due to the fact of what he doesn't go into detail of what he saw, but he just says in general he does know it. So then the next episode is Simon's mother's birthday party. So Simon goes to the party. Apparently we find out that when Simon was a kid, there was a fire at the house, and Simon was in the fire and he had no damage whatsoever. Obviously the thought process is Simon caused the damage to the stove, which caused the fire. However, Simon was unfazed by any of it, mostly due to the fact that we're assuming his powers. In this, we don't know the full extent of his powers, obviously, but clearly he didn't suffer any damage from fire. So we have, I forgot the main piece of this whole thing. The beginning of episode 1 is the fact that the reason why Simon wants to do Wonder Man in general is because his dad took him to Wonder Man when he was a kid, and told Simon that he would be a good actor. And this is kind of why he's putting this whole pressure on himself to do the best he can. So anyway, Trevor weasels his way into the party. His job at this party is to try to get the information from the family about what happened in the fire. They do not give any information other than the fact that nobody really knows much about Simon. They very much play it off like there's not a problem whatsoever, until the point where everyone leaves and it's between Simon, his brother Eric, and his mother and Trevor are all left. And he gives a gift to his mother, and Eric is pissed off because he knows that his mother gave Simon the money to buy her a present, and he was very unhappy about it. And Simon gets pissed off and slams his fists onto the counter in the island and destroys it with his powers. So Trevor's wearing a wire this entire time, so he is now realizing that Simon is not a bad guy. They then talk and everything else. Trevor breaks the recording device, and the episode ends with with them finding out that they have a callback to Wonder Man. So the next episode is we find out why superheroes are not allowed to be in movies, specifically Hollywood. So So it turns out this man called the Doorman figures, he's a doorman quite literally, and lets people into this club. He touches this magical ooze that gives him the power to create portals through his body. Saves a bunch of people through a burning fire, saves Josh Gad, to be specific. Later on, he then asks Josh Gad, calls him up to be his personal assistant, paying him a lot of money. I think it was $300,000 a year, I think. Don't quote me on it. But it was a lot of money, and he did not say no for obvious reasons. I mean, I can't blame him. I wouldn't say no either. Gets into Hollywood, all of a sudden gets into special effects, has this big, huge career in a short-term gain, starts to decline, starts drinking more, tries to do this big stage thing. Basically, he becomes a superstar overnight. We see him kind of go back and forth of being like exactly how Josh Gad was, which was trying to get people, helping people out. However, he gets to a point where his career goes downhill rather quickly. He then has a phone call from Josh Gad, who wants him to do the sequel to their movie that they did together. He agrees, however, because of his intoxication and everything else, he fails doing the job correctly, and the portal kind of closes in on Josh Gad, and we don't know what happens to him. So basically, he's gone missing. So the whole concept of that was the fact of a major star goes missing thanks to a super-powered being. And because of that, they were no longer allowing them to be in films anymore. Mostly due to the fact of, although it saved them a lot of money on CGI, it cost them a lot more by losing a star in the making. So it was a little bit of a detour. Also, his comic book accurate costume was kind of cool too. I did like that. It was paying homage to his character in the comics, which I did like. However, he wasn't a hero in the show. He's just an actor, which I thought was kind of interesting as well. So then the next episode is Trevor getting himself, because Trevor and Simon celebrate the fact that they have a callback and that they're going to have a couple of drinks. Granted, Trevor does not drink. He's sober, 13 years. However, he and Simon have a great night out. Then Trevor gets attacked by I guess a mob guy, who basically, apparently, Trevor owes money to for all the drugs and alcohol and I believe women he paid for as well. Simon helps him out, beats everyone up, uses his powers more than he should. A kid records him. They spend the whole time chasing him. This kid then blackmails them to try to help him out. It turns into a massive issue where it was apparently this kid didn't like another kid because of literally a candy company issue. Kid you not. To the point where the mob finds Trevor again, who then uses the kid as leverage. The police come. They then find out. Simon gets a phone call stating that the callbacks are earlier than expected and at the director's home, so they got to get out of there as quickly as possible. So they run out of there, finding out that he does not have super speed at one point as well, but they get to the audition with Kovac. So they get there. Simon's all worried about it because he's tired and everything else and hasn't been really focusing, and Trevor's just like, you gotta relax. Like, if you don't relax, you're not going to do well. So during this, Kovac has a very different audition process. He's basically giving you a scenario and seeing what you do with it with your scene partner. And so there are 3 Barnabys and 3 Wonder Man potentials. We also find out from the script that Barnaby betrays Wonder Man. So Simon is really struggling in this audition and is not doing well, to the point where one of his audition pieces turns into a mess because the guy keeps calling him a freak and everything else. And then he gets out of there and goes away. Trevor goes to talk to him, and basically Simon's like, I can't be myself, because if I am myself, I'm going to be kicked out of Hollywood and never be able to work again. And that's when Trevor's like, Your powers aren't you. Your powers are your condition. You know, you get to still be you. You are the person underneath it all. So you get to decide how you handle that. And that is the person that you need to be. That is Wonder Man. So he and Trevor do a scene together, and it moves Kovac so much that they become they become Wonder Man and Barnaby. So we cut to a little bit into the future where he books Wonder Man. He is now getting himself all ready and everything else. Trevor's helping out to kind of relax Simon so he doesn't keep messing up. Then we have this massive interview where this particular reporter digs into the personal lives of the actors and pulls out any information and all that she can to use to kind of have in the interview. So she interviews a whole bunch of people to try to figure out what's going on and go from there. So Simon's freaking out mostly due to the fact that he is worried that people are going to talk about his powers. So apparently his brother, his mother, and his ex-girlfriend were talked to. He goes to have a drink with his ex-girlfriend and tries to find out what she said. Turns out she said absolutely nothing other than the fact that he's a great guy, and it just didn't work out between them. And she basically says to him that she knew he had powers, and she wishes that Simon has somebody in his life that he can trust enough to open up to talk about his powers. However, she knows she's not that person, and she wishes him the best. Turns out his brother said great things about him as well. However, during the interview, Simon was boasted about how great he is, not himself, meaning she was talking about how his family said all these great things. Trevor, on the other hand, was in the hot seat, mostly due to the fact of when he was arrested, when he got off the flight, he, well, did you get some sort of deal or something? And he starts freaking out and leaves the interview prematurely. Simon goes to follow him, and he finds out from Trevor that he was tasked by Damage Control to watch and monitor Simon. Simon gets pissed, blows up, almost quite literally, in the studio, which causes a massive explosion that causes all the destruction in the studio. Simon then runs thinking he's lost everything. Trevor figures out a plan that he's going to be the Mandarin one last time. He tells Simon that he finally figured out a plan to work everything out. He pretends to be the Mandarin one last time to make it so everyone believes he did it, not Simon. He gets arrested. Simon goes free. Trevor is in prison in Damage Control's special prison. And Simon gets his big break in Wonder Man and has all the opportunities he can to go wherever he wants. Him and Kovac talk about a potential sequel. However, in the final episode, we find him in the middle of nowhere, it feels like, talking to a guy learning how to be a security guard in a max prison. Turns out it's the prison that Trevor's in. Simon wired the guy a lot of money without him knowing, and he goes and breaks Trevor out of prison, where we see him use his powers to blast through the prison and fly out of there. And that is how the series ends. So this was actually a really incredible show, I have to say. It was so well done. The acting was incredible. The story was phenomenal. And the fact that it was a superhero show where the superhero part of it was not the main focus of the story made it even better, in my opinion. But overall, I thought this was an incredible show. I definitely think this is top tier Marvel show for sure. Because of it being so out of left field, so different than all the other shows, I think that's what makes it so unique and good. And the acting, like I said, was incredible. Tying it into the MCU overall was incredible as well. I just thought everything overall was great. So let me know what you guys thought about this series in the comments down below. Did you like it? Did you not? And why? And as always, if you like the content you see, please make sure to like and subscribe down below. Other than that, this is going to be Beastly Eel signing out. Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.